Well, Matt, I can tell you the parents that I've spoken to would have done anything to have stopped this massacre sooner. I met with the father yesterday of someone who lost his 10-year-old daughter. He was too broken to speak on camera, and he sobbed uncontrollably as he told me he'd just bought her a hammock so she could sit outside in the back garden and text with her friends. Then there was a moment when he looked at me and he said, I can't stop thinking about the fact that she would come into my wife every morning at 7 a.m. because she just couldn't wait to get to school. And yes, there are questions as to why the police didn't act soon enough, but I can also tell you that last night, I met with the police sergeant. He too was holding back tears as he described standing next to his deputy the moment that he discovered his own daughter dead on the classroom floor. And in another tragic twist, Matt, the husband of one of the two teachers who was killed in the school there behind me has died of a heart attack.
Prayers outside the local Catholic church in Uvalde.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners now at the hour.
As this tight-knit Latino community tries to get to grips with the senseless slaughter of 21 of their own. But how can you begin to comprehend the incomprehensible? For everyone here knows someone who lost their daughter, their son, their niece or nephew, their cousin. Irene Salinas used to teach many of the 19 children who were killed and considers them like family.
It's just shattering. There's no other word. It's beyond devastation. These children shouldn't have died that way.
Like many in the wake of mass school shootings, Irene wants tighter gun control, but she knows the partisan politics of America won't deliver it. So the only thing left, she says, is to arm the teachers.
If those teachers might have had a gun when that person came up, they wouldn't have been reached out. I would do that for my students.
You would?
I would. I would defend them with my life.
The irony is there was an armed security guard on the door when Salvador Ramos began his rampage. Then dozens of armed officers cordoned off the school, even controversially blocking desperate parents who wanted to storm the building. Inside, terrified children heard the gunshots and immediately followed the rules of their regularly rehearsed shooter drills, common to all American school kids, as they hid under their desks and locked the doors. Still, the gunman was able to lock himself in one of the classrooms for at least 40 minutes, indiscriminately killing the children and their two teachers before Border Patrol guards were finally able to break in and bring the terror to an end. Had one of the teachers been armed, perhaps there's a chance they might have shot Ramos first. But is that what it's come to in America in 2022? That more guns is the only answer? In Texas and other Republican states, they believe it is. In fact, laws here allow residents to carry guns without a permit. They even reject stricter background checks that might have made it tougher for 18-year-old Ramos to buy his 2 semi-automatic rifles. After all, you can't buy alcohol here until you're 21.
It is absolutely wrong. In fact, it is insane. The governor talks about mental health. It is insane that we allow an 18-year-old to go in and buy an AR-15. What the hell did we think he was going to do with that? This one is on us.
He's referring to the Republican governor, Greg Abbott, who yesterday blamed mental illness as the main driver behind the shooting, not guns.
It's the love of Christ.
Last night, Abbott attended a vigil in Uvalde where hundreds gathered to mourn.
We pray these things in Jesus' name.
Outside, we met Nicole Ugburn, a teacher at Robb Elementary School, who hid with her pupils as the shooting spree was underway in the class next door. But you must have thought, at some point, this is coming to us.
I did. And all I did was pray. I held my kids' hands and we prayed.
Despite being so close to the killer, Nicole agrees with her Republican governor. Put it down more to mental health than to the availability of guns?
Yeah, I do. I really do. And I don't want to get into politics and all that stuff, but I do.
But politics and guns are deeply intertwined in America. And until somehow they are separated, school kids will continue to hold one another, weeping at the senseless loss of their fallen friends.
Siobhan Kennedy reporting from Uvalde, Texas. Well, earlier I spoke to Gustavo Garcia Siller, the Archbishop of San Antonio, the closest city to Uvalde. And I began by asking him what the situation was there.
I was able just in 2 days to see the evolution of the situation. Now is the third day before the families gather to find out in the hospital if their children were there. That was one phase. The second phase was when they were at the Civic Center and they were invited there to wait, to be told. But then when they knew, it's a different moment, because before they were like wishing, it's a little bit of hoping and a little bit of magical thinking that things will be fine, that their child is okay. And then after they knew, is a very dramatic expression of the pain and the sorrow. And
Many of the politicians in your state, in the state of Texas, who are opposed to gun regulations, like Senator Ted Cruz or the governor, Greg Abbott, they consider themselves to be devout Christians. Many of them are devout Catholics. So what do you say to them as the Archbishop on this particular issue?
I will say, if you are Christian, if you are a Christian in the Catholic Church, you need to be consistent. Your voice is a vacuum. It means nothing if you are not consistent with your beliefs.
And by consistency, you mean if you're going to criticize abortion, control the guns.
Exactly. And stop that penalty and do something more concrete for the homeless, for children in drugs, and we can go on and on. I met with 2 children who saw the killing of their classmates in the classroom yesterday. And one of them expressed clearly, she said, the person that was next to me, my classmate, the girl, she was shot and I was trying to help her. She couldn't end the sentence, so the mother ended it for her. She said, I tried to help her, but, and the mother said, she was dead. So those children, they know that it was a person, but a person with an instrument of killing those people, and many other reasons around it. But she understood what is to help somebody else at that moment. And she couldn't, and she's frustrated, and she's traumatized. Well, that leads to mental illness for sure. And can cover up. We can cover up with that our sins and our wrong decisions at the level of leadership in the country.
Archbishop Garcia Siller, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Well, joining me now from Washington, D.C. is American human rights lawyer Qasim Rashid, who has called on President Joe Biden to use his executive powers to enact tougher gun controls. Thank you so much for coming on the program. You heard the anger of the Archbishop there, who is now calling for greater gun control. What we hear from so many lawmakers, especially Republicans, is that you've got to beef up security in the schools, guns for the teachers. But this school did have 3 security guards, didn't it? They had done just that.
I think this is the point that a lot of folks need to realize. Robb Elementary did everything Republicans said would work. Since 2017, they doubled their spend on security. They had a fence, they had a surveillance system, they had armed guards. All of it failed. And this is the 13th major mass shooting in the last 8 years in Texas. The constant theme throughout all of those mass shootings is easy access to firearms. And that's the one thing that the Republicans refuse to acknowledge. And we're paying for it with the blood of our children. It is unacceptable. It is immoral. It is inhumane.
Most of us in Europe, as you might have guessed, are just baffled by America's love affair with guns, by the weaponization of the Second Amendment. Explain to us the brutal politics, also involving money from the NRA, that means that real change can probably never happen.
Well, hundreds of millions have been spent by the NRA to lobby Republican politicians. I put out a tweet, and Brady Pack has done some phenomenal work on that. But I think what people around the world should understand, that this is what minority rule looks like. The vast majority of Americans, more than 90%, want common sense gun reform. They want universal background checks. They want red flag laws, which allows a court to take guns away from people who are threatening violence or committing violence or threatening some form of terrorism. But because we don't have a system in place that prevents unlimited funds from coming in to basically buy politicians, we're stuck. And what we know is that states that are run by Democrats that have stricter gun laws are among the least gun violent states in the country. And those states, 9 of the top 10 most dangerous states for gun violence, are Republican-led states.
Yes.
And so rather than buying into the right-wing propaganda, when we look at the facts, we know gun reform works. We just need to find a way to make it on a federal and national level to protect all people.
And yet Republicans who are in favor of more guns keep getting re-elected. There's probably going to be a landslide by the Republicans in the midterm elections this year. We know that gun control on Congress, will kill your seat.
Well, I hope there's not a landslide. And this is my call to my fellow Americans, that this is the time to channel that anger, channel that rage, and get active and get organized. I grew up in the Chicagoland area. I've seen the progress that can happen when people work together. And even though Chicago is demonized as some gun capital. What?
We've said this before. This is the moment of change about America. And it never comes.
This is the time we need to activate and organize. Every single person needs to not only vote, but get involved on a local and state campaign to ensure that the people we are electing are truly reflected. And I don't just mean Democrats. I mean Democrats who reject corporate money, reject gun lobby money, reject big pharma money. People focus on actually serving the needs of working people. If they're not ready to do that, they need to be voted out of office, period.